The OSG Sports app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. All you got to do, install the OSG Sports app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, lacrosse. Let's get this done. Get the OSG Sports app today.
Welcome to the College Football Debrief with your host, Anthony Goldman and John Wilkerson.
Tommy Palmer, thanks. It's the College Football Debrief. John Wilkerson here. Anthony Goldman there. As we come to you with the College Football Debrief, we welcome you listening to us on our host site Spreaker, as well as Spotify, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, barnburner.ca, YouTube, and on the OSG Sports app on your iPhone or your Android. So, Anthony, we've had our first coaching casualty. Willie Taggart was let go Sunday by Florida State, and I can't say this was not unexpected.
No, this was, and you know what? Let me say this before we go into what we think. I got to give Florida State credit for this because this is a move that the fans have been wanting, and they were calling for since honestly last year. And we said after the Boise State loss that it was really going to be a matter of time, and the crows would get louder and louder. But let's be honest. The fans can crow about it, but Florida State's athletic board has never been known to be a progressive or, reactive, I guess, to the fans. And they responded. They responded a lot quicker than I thought they would. I thought after the Miami loss that that probably sealed his fate, but it wouldn't seal his fate until December. And whether it be the fan reaction, whether it be the early signing period, whatever reason you want to give it, you got to give credit to Florida State's athletic department for making this move and getting in front of the ball. I mean, I have to give them kudos for that.
The move is going to cost Florida State $22 million. Willie Taggart's going to get $17.7 from Florida State. Another $3 million Florida State has to cough up because of the buyout to Oregon. And then they also had to take responsibility for Oregon's buyout of South Florida. And when you add up the numbers, it comes up to $22 million. So Florida State was able to find some deep pockets to be able to cover those costs. But can we say that was a $22 million mistake by FSU? I mean, let's think about back when this went down, Anthony. You and I were kind of lukewarm about it. And then as the momentum grew during the spring practice and up into fall camp in the 2018 season, there was a lot of excitement there. It was a guy from Florida, a Florida State fan whose dream job was to be the Florida State head coach, got the opportunity. And it seemed like on that first quarter in the season opener against Virginia Tech last year, everything changed. It went from the pendulum went one way to the other, and it was kind of indicative of how that short era of Willie Taggart at Florida State was.
And it's funny you bring that up because I don't know if I could really think of a more dramatic program changing moment in a first game of a head coach than that game, because you're absolutely right. That Virginia Tech game last year, if you go back, there was so much excitement around that program. And everybody thought Willie was, a good recruiter. He could get the right kids there. They liked the staff he put together. And there was so much momentum, and it just died after that Virginia Tech game. And it never came back last season. And, in the offseason, they were getting some buzz again because if you look at the roster on paper, they do have talent on that team, and they have NFL talent. So you looked at their schedule and you looked at their roster, and you thought, this team at worst should be an 8-4 team. And in the preseason, when we were doing all of our previews, everybody, most media, when I say everybody, the main media had FSU as a 10-win team, John. I mean, everybody thought they were. And you and I both were like, sell me on it. I get the hype. I hear the hype, but I got to see it, and it just never came together. And look, now this always happens. You're hearing all these rumors now come out after the fact about people saying, oh, he told me he was in over his head. And this former head coach reached out to this media guy and said, he called me and said he doesn't know how to handle the job and the pressure and blah, blah, blah. A lot of this is probably just smoke and mirrors, but he did always look like the job was too big for him. And as we transition into what's next for Florida State, this goes beyond Willie Taggart. This is a administration and a program direction question to me. What do you want to be, and how much are you willing to give to get there? Not just from the head coach, not just from the assistants, but from the administration. I think that's the bigger question moving forward, because Willie Taggart, for all of his flaws, John, that he had, I don't think that he ever had the proper backing from the beginning.
You're probably right. And by the way, that game against Virginia Tech scored on their first 2 offensive possessions, and it just steamrolled from there. And you just saw the air leaving the stadium midway through the first quarter. And, you know, it's fair to say that the Willie Taggart era began that way, and he could never recover from that performance, that first quarter performance in the season opener in 2018 against Virginia Tech. It was just, it was a struggle ever since. And I think you're right, Anthony. It's time to figure out what direction the Seminoles want to go. Obviously, they feel like they're a blue blood program, and you know, they were from the late 70s on until I guess about the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. But the thing I keep harping on, Anthony, is Florida State had their first coaching search 2 years ago since 1976, and they botched it. So who's in charge? Who is setting the agenda for the program for the future? I mean, there's a lot of pressure on the athletic director of Florida State, whoever runs the booster program, which I know is very powerful in Tallahassee. There's a lot of pressure to get this right.
Well, the interesting thing is that, you know, they've hired a search firm, which means one of two things to me. It either means that they don't trust themselves or want to go to an outside source to get this done because they don't know if they can make the right decision, which I don't think is a bad idea. I think that's totally fine if you want to go that route. Look, if you think that people that are paid to do this for a living can make a better decision than you can, sure, go seek advice, absolutely. But the other side of that is, do they know what they're doing at all? You know, I know a lot of fans aren't excited about a search firm getting involved because they want someone who knows the problems that they have. And look, the problems at Florida State go beyond on the field. I mean, like we said, there's an internal battle right now at Florida State as far as the direction of where they go. And when you look at candidates, John, I think there's 2 types of coach that you're really going to have to go to. The first type is the ruler, you know, carries a big stick type of coach, a Nick Saban, if you will. And I'm not saying Nick Saban, but a Nick Saban type of personality. What I mean by that is they don't know what they want. So you come in and you tell them what they want. You
and
come
they
in
had
and
that
say,
with Jimbo Fisher.
They did have that. And I was about to get to that. They need a guy that's going to tell them what to do, how to do it, and why it needs to be done. But they have to back that. If they're going to do that, they got to support him and give him whatever it is he asked for. You want this new facility that we don't know what it's for? Sure, go ahead. We'll write the check. You need this. You need 20 dudes in a cubicle on a Tuesday. You got it. Whatever it is, you ask for it, we deliver. They had that with Jimbo Fisher. It didn't work out. Maybe they'd be willing to go back to that. The other type of coach they can look at is a type of coach that knows how to go beyond an administration turmoil and can work within those parameters. And when I think of that kind of guy, the first guy that jumps out to me is Matt Rule. Matt Rule knows how to handle limitations, knows how to handle – I don't want to say backing because Baylor does support their athletics and their football program, but when he came in, football was kind of a dirty word at Baylor for a lot of reasons. And he handled that. He rode the wave and he got them back to where now the athletic department is more than willing to support him because he earned their trust. I think a guy like that is going to have to take this job. And I think Matt Rule is the perfect fit for that.
Interesting you bring up Matt Rule. He's kind of on the top of my list as far as what Florida State should go for. And you're exactly right. Here's a guy that you talk about walking into a hornet's nest. I can't think other than I forget who took over for SMU in 1989. But that's the only similar thing I can think of where a head coach has come into such a mess. And that's what Matt Rule had to do at Baylor. And look how he's succeeding right now. And I think he'd be a good fit there. I mean, there's a lot of interesting names that's been listed on publications and brainstormed or whatever. Obviously, the Stoops brothers are up there, Bob and Mark at Kentucky. Of course, Mark was a defensive coordinator at Florida State in the early 2010s with Jimbo Fisher, so he's very familiar. And there's the usual names are going to be attached to every big time job. PJ Fleck, Mike Norvell, Matt Campbell,
Brent Venables.
Exactly. But some of the names that are on the list that kind of raised my eyebrow, Matt Rule was one of them, but he was kind of somebody I thought of. The other I've seen on the list is Dave Clawson at Wake Forest. He's never taken over a big time program like that. It'd be kind of interesting for him to even interview for a division rival in the same conference. But he's had success at similar schools like Wake Forest, where they're limited in budget, they're limited in personnel. And look what he's doing at Wake. He did the same thing at Bowling Green, I believe, Fordham, Richmond. He's never had a program like a Florida State that expects to win national titles year in, year out, conference titles. I don't know if the fit is that good, but he's kind of an interesting candidate for that job.
I was surprised to see his name pop up, and I'll tell you this: Dave Clawson and Mark Stoops to me are kind of the same candidate in a way. They've overachieved at programs that most people don't think they should be able to reach the levels that they've reached. The problem with that, though, is a lot of times when a program, and we already said about Florida State, there is a identity issue within the athletic department, and how much are we going to commit and what kind of commitment are we going to make towards football? That's already going on. And when you bring in a guy that's done more with less, sometimes it can result in providing him less, if that makes sense. You look at a guy and you're like, well, he got all this done with these resources, so why do we need to give him X amount? You don't want to set that precedent. And I think that concerns me sometimes when you have a big time program that's kind of down and they're looking to bring in a coach that's overachieved at smaller programs. You don't want your office acting the way Wake Forest office does. You know what I mean? You don't want Florida State from an administration level operating the way that Wake Forest operates, because right now they don't seem like they know how they want to operate. I think that the other way you can go with this, and this is going to lead me into my other guy who I'm high on, if you're going to go get a coach and give him a chance, you want to get a guy that has changed the program and has made it bigger than it was when he got there. For all the winning that Wake Forest has done under Dave Clawson, I don't know if he's necessarily made it bigger. He's just won. Jim Grove won before he did. Same with Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops has done a really good job at Kentucky, but Rich Brooks built Kentucky. Rich Brooks did the same job Mark Stoops has done. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to talk about it. I look at a guy like PJ Fleck, and PJ Fleck has made Minnesota a bigger program than it was when he got there. And he got it from a really good coach. Now, you can talk about, the health issues and all that, but he got it from a very good coach.
That would be Jerry Kill.
Yes, he got a good program from Jerry Kill, and he built on it and made it better. And that's the kind of guy I would look at. And PJ Fleck is a very controversial, I guess is the best word to use. You either like him or you don't. A lot of media guys don't like him. And a lot of football analysts that I really put a lot of faith in don't think he's a very good coach. And I disagree with that. I think he's an excellent coach. I think he's different. I think he does things in a very different way, and he's very new age. And I think that could be something that Florida State could look at and try to embrace. I mean, if you really want to be honest about it, they did embrace a new age guy that brought different styles to the program. His name was Bobby Bowden. How different was Bobby when he took that job? So, yeah, going outside the box, they are familiar with. I think PJ Fleck would be a good fit there, and I think he can recruit. That's the other thing. Can a Jim Grove recruit? Jim Grove, that's stuck in my mind now. Can a Dave Clawson recruit? Can a Mark Stoops recruit? They've overachieved with smaller talent, but it's the same thing Florida fans are asking about Dan Mullen. Yeah, but can you get the better players when you have better resources? I think PJ Fleck can because he's so young and charismatic. Everywhere he goes, he flocks attention his way. And those other guys we named are football coaches. They coach football. They're old school. They wear, the hats with the bent brims. They show up. They don't care about the media. They just want to coach football. This is a showman we're talking about, PJ Fleck. And that's going to resonate with the recruits. I mean, I don't know if he can have the level of success that James Franklin has had, but there's a lot of James Franklin in PJ Fleck when I look at him. And that's kind of the guy I would be looking at other than Matt Rule.
Of course, we know who the coach is right now, and that's Odell Higgins. He was in this position 2 years ago on the interim level, and through whatever it was, emotion or whatever he brought to the table, Florida State won 2 in a row before they brought in Willie Taggart. Now Odell Higgins is in that spot again. And his first game is this weekend, this Saturday in Chestnut Hill against Boston College, a winnable game for Florida State. And then if they can win that and defeat Alabama State at home on November 16th, they're bowl eligible. Florida will be an interesting game in Gainesville. But think about this, because there might be a movement if Odell Higgins is real successful in this 3, possibly 4-game audition. There might be a little grassroots movement to keep him as head coach. I don't think that would be a great move, but there might be sentiment if he does really well. Let's say he goes 4-0 or 3-1 in that stretch. There could be a grassroots movement to keep him on board as head coach.
Well, I'm sure the players will be supporting that movement. Player guy, but let's be honest, the only way he's a legitimate candidate is if they beat. If they don't beat Florida, I don't care if he goes 3-1. He's got to beat Florida to have a legitimate chance. But yeah, I mean, you could entertain that question. They don't need to go that route. I've already seen. It's so funny that people jump the gun. I've already seen comparisons to him and Ed Orgeron. Look what Ed Orgeron's doing, and doesn't USC wish they would have done that? You can't play that game. I mean, you can't play that game. And, Odell Hagan did a very good job with him when he took over. But also don't forget, they won 2 games. One of them was against a Florida team that was looking for a new coach. And the other one was a game that had been canceled, and they only got made up with an FCS team so they can make a bowl. So It's not like he's going out there and beating Clemson. Let's see how he does against Florida. Now, if he's 2-0 against Florida as an interim coach, now we'll start talking.
But does he want the gig? And Odell Higgins might be the type of guy that doesn't mind being out of the spotlight, because assistants make really good money too. You don't have to be the top dog.
Yeah, well, and he should stick around. If they screw it up, he might get a chance to be interim again in 2 years.
That's right. I believe he would be called the ultimate blowout patch in Tallahassee. So now that Willie Taggart is gone and at Florida State, and that shoe is dropped, and with the early signing period, we're probably going to see more of this in the next few weeks, probably after this week too. I guess one place you'd be looking at, since the precedent has been set with Willie Taggart midway through his second season being let go, that precedent has not been set, and now all eyes are probably on Fayetteville, Arkansas, where Chad Morris is really struggling at Arkansas, has yet to win an SEC game there. And the Hogs have Western Kentucky in Fayetteville this Saturday with a former Razorback quarterback, Ty Story, leading the Hilltoppers. John Stephen Jones is going to start for the Razorbacks. Could that be the next shoe to fall if they lose to Western Kentucky, or if they win by maybe 3?
I think that is probably the next logical spot. I mean, I think there's 2 coaches right now that are we're waiting to see what happens with them, and Chad Morris is definitely one of them. you and I were talking before we started recording. We're both big Chad Morris supporters. We've never backed down from that. We've always liked him. We've covered him when he was an offense coordinator, knowing pretty decently well. Really good coach. And I believe in what he does. It's not working in Arkansas for numerous reasons. I'm not saying that he can't turn it around, but I'm not sure he's going to turn it around. I can't blame him for whatever they do, but the question is, if they get rid of him, where are they going to go from here? Because he's still a good coach. And, he was trying to transition from one style of football to another. So right now, Arkansas's roster, and the roster better than me, but they're kind of in like a weird in-between area where they got some skill guys that can play spread. They got some skill guys that can play a pro style. So do you go get a West Coast guy? It's very interesting if you decide to make a change. Where do you go? But I think that's key. What can you do better than Chad Morris? Because say what you want about Chad Morris, he is a good coach.
No, I totally agree. And of course, Cheyenne O'Grady is no longer on the team. So that's a big loss at the tight end position for Arkansas. But you're right. Where do they go? And obviously, I think that the groundswell support would be for Mike Norvell, being from, and I think there's a faction of fans back in Arkansas that probably wish he was hired rather than Chad Morris at the time. But I'm a big believer in Chad Morris. I just don't think he's had the right personnel, and the personnel that he has that probably fits his style of offense. He hasn't trusted. He hasn't put in. I'm thinking of John Stephen Jones. I'm thinking about KJ Jefferson. Those are guys that he brought in to run his offense. He's brought in his quarterback at SMU, Ben Hicks, and he brought in Nick Starkel, which obviously they just don't have what it takes to win in the SEC. You're right. There's a lot of talent that's there, but there's a lot that really just don't fit into what they do. It's kind of crazy there, but we'll see. I mean, this is a huge test against Western Kentucky. Arkansas has come out flat. I mean, you watched them against Alabama. I refused to watch it because I knew what was going to happen. I watched the Mississippi State game, and they just looked like uninterested and flat at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
and they tried to rally.
I was with you. I was surprised how flat they were in that Mississippi State game because that was their chance to get a conference win. I mean, Mississippi State is no world beater, and they've got their own coaching issues going on. So that was the perfect opportunity for them to step up, and they played very uninspired, and that was a bad sign for Arkansas. I totally agree with you on that. The other coach, and this is a debate, if Chad Morris loses this weekend, I think you're right. There is a good chance by the time we do this next week, he's gone. The other guy that I keep waiting on the shoe to drop is Clay Helton at USC. When is that shoe finally going to drop?
And they have a new athletic director.
I think we're at the point, right. I think we're at the point now to where, barring a blowout loss, this is going to play out probably after the UCLA game. I do think that a move is still going to happen, but I honestly, I think the minds have already been made up. I think they know this is eventually going to happen, but I think they're taking their time on it, and he's pretty much a dead man walking.
Well, is there a certain college football studio analyst that has won national championships at two separate schools? Is that contract being put together once the UCLA game is over with?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking, why can't he go to Fayetteville? Could you Urban Meyer in Arkansas? Let's make that happen. How about that?
What's interesting is,
I mean,
he spoke at the Little Rock Touchdown Club not too long ago, and talking about
get that rumor started.
Talking about how it's the Arkansas job is a great job and one of the top jobs out there. So, maybe he was doing his own politicking
first,
for
folks. Urban Meyer to Arkansas, per John Wilkerson. Urban's going to Fayetteville. No,
I think it's more likely he goes to Southern Cal.
I don't think he goes. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't think he goes to Southern Cal because I think it's been too predicted. We were saying it last year, the day he retired. Yep, 2 years he'll be in Southern Cal. I mean, people were saying it the day he retired. So I think for a dignity standpoint, which you can debate how much dignity Urban has left, but I don't think that he's going to take the Southern Cal job right away. And that's Southern Cal also. I mean, we talked about Florida State. They got to figure out who they are and what they want to be. Now, Urban Meyer is going to win. You bring him in, he's going to win. But, how much are you willing to sell to get to that point? I think that would be interesting. I don't think he ends up in Southern Cal, though. This is early on. Also, we talked about Florida State without getting into the ridiculous rumor that's not going to happen about Bob Stoops. So kudos to us, by the way.
Well, we did say the Stoops brothers, but we've concentrated on Mark rather than
the brothers,
Bob.
but right. We talked about the realistic candidate to go to Florida State. Bob Stoops is not going to Florida State. I'm sorry.
Nah, he's probably going to enjoy being the head coach of the Dallas franchise of the XFL. That's going to be interesting. But going back to the Southern Cal job, they tend to like NFL guys, and I wonder what NFL guy would they'd be targeting, because Pete Carroll was a former NFL guy. I think Clay Helton had some NFL pedigree as well before he latched on to Southern Cal. I think since the Rams and the Chargers are in town now, and although I think Southern Cal, if they win in a consistent basis, pretty much still owns that town now. But I think they want somebody with some NFL pedigree that's got some name recognition that can probably put some butts in the seats.
Well, you mentioned NFL. I think it's interesting you said Sean McVay, because that's the coaching tree that the NFL is picking off of now. In the NFL, it's funny. The NFL is getting younger in their coaches and younger in their approach. Yeah. So if you model that, I'm going to throw a guy at you. And I don't know if USC would actually want him. I don't know if he's qualified for this job. But I think maybe he pops up in some jobs, including Arkansas search possibly, a guy like Joe Brady, because that's what the NFL has become. And we see right away Joe Brady's impact that he's had at LSU and changing that offense to the most explosive offense they've ever had. So that's the system that we're now looking at when you say NFL coach. Well, it's not the NFL approach that we saw 10 years ago. It's a new style. And with that new style might bring a young, fresh guy like a Joe Brady.
Well, what brain has Joe Brady been picking throughout the season? John Robinson, a former Southern Cal head coach.
That's a good point.
Who has a brilliant offensive mind. Joe Brady has used that to his advantage. And I could see him, and I'm sure John Robinson still has some juice on that Southern Cal campus. I could see him being a serious candidate for the Trojans. Anthony, we've talked about the coaching carousel, and I'm sure we're going to be doing that a lot in the next month or so, probably longer than that. Well, let's talk about some games. I know you were really interested in talking about the world's largest outdoor cocktail party from over the weekend, Georgia, Florida. What a game.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was kind of interesting because there's two sides depending on what school you're a fan of. From the Georgia perspective, the story was the offensive line play, and really both line plays, but the offensive line at Georgia finally lived up to their hype that they had in the offseason and looked like one of the elite lines in the country. From the Florida side, though, and this was kind of my biggest takeaway, I was shocked at how passive Todd Grantham was defensively. And this was the second game where you could say that. Now, the LSU game, I think that warranted a little bit more because you were seeing a lot of exotic formations and looks that maybe your guys weren't as used to seeing. So you had to adjust more. But Georgia was pretty basic in their pre-snap formations and their sets. And Florida was very passive, a lot of soft zone in this game. And that's why they got eaten alive on third down. What were they, 11 of 17 on third down, Georgia was? And it felt like the further the down and distance, the more likely it was they were going to get it because Florida was playing so soft. So I was really surprised at the lack of aggressiveness because when you think of Todd Grantham, you think of just sending everybody on every single play. And it was the exact opposite in this game, and I really think that hurt him, John.
I tend to agree with you. I think it was a reestablishment of Jake Fromm. Couple of lackluster performances at home, and he comes out and has the not only the type of game he had, but just his toughness and his will to win was in full display at this game. And you heard Kirby Smart at the end say something along the lines that kid's a winner. I remember in the post-game interview, and it wasn't a coming out party for Jake Fromm because he's already had that, but this was kind of a reestablishing of his will to win and his leadership of that Georgia team, in my opinion.
It was a great moment for him, but I also want to say I feel like it was a reformation that the most valuable player on that offense is Lawrence Cager. I mean, Lawrence Cager comes back, and how many times does a player coming off of an injury come back in a big game and steal the show? And with all those young and experienced wide receivers, he, to me, as much talent as DeAndre Swift has and that backfield has and Jake Fromm, he's the most valuable player on that team because that receiving core goes the way Lawrence Cager goes. So they're going to need him down the stretch, and he needs to keep having a big game. But that to me reestablished that he is their guy.
Oh, you're perfectly right. And to me, it kind of that felt like the Georgia team we've been wanting to see the last month or so. And we'll see with Georgia as they continue on through the season whether they can build with some momentum off that win, because they've got Missouri and they've got Auburn still to play in conference. So maybe this is kind of the ump that Georgia needed to get through the season and get that playoff berth.
Yeah, this is a get well game for them. And, we talked about this after they lost to South Carolina. They were just trying to get to this game. And we said, they're going to get to this game, try to get there, just get through, and then they're going to win. And it will hopefully, catapult them into what they thought they were and get their postseason run going or their late season run going. And that's exactly what happened. So now we get Missouri coming between the hedges. Missouri doesn't know how to play on the road for some reason. And then they get a Georgia Tech team that is going through what they're going through. So Georgia's in a great spot right now. They still look like they're in pole position to make Atlanta, and they've got about a month to get it all tuned up before they meet somebody out of the West.
Okay, Anthony, I'm going to bring up a team that you were very high on at the beginning of the season that kind of raised my eyebrow, but you're being proved right a little bit here, and that's the Oregon State Beavers. They're 4-4 on the year. They won 2 in a row, all on the road at Cal and at Arizona. And now they've got home games against Washington and Arizona State the next couple of weeks. And before they close at Washington State and at Oregon, the Beavers could be bowl eligible for a team that was picked to finish dead last in their division.
Well, and a team that was picked to win maybe one game.
Yep.
I mean, I know 4-4 sounds like, seriously, you're blowing up a team that's 4-4. Guys, they were only picked to win a game. And some people had them picked to be winless. So, unbelievable job that they're doing at Oregon State. And doing it not just offensively, but all three phases of the game. Offense, defense, special teams. They're a solid, well-coached football team. Now, they don't have any chance to win this week against Washington. I think we all know that. And they're probably not going to make a bowl. They could beat Arizona State at home. We'll see. But asking them to go, to Washington State or to Eugene, Oregon and get a win is a tall order for them. But even if they lose the next 4, even if they go 4-8, the fact that right now they have 4 wins on the year and 3 of those 4 are on the road at UCLA, at Cal, and at Arizona, you can't say anything bad about the job that coaching staff has done.
You're right. And like I say, you were high on them at the beginning of the year. You didn't think they would make a bowl game, but you thought they would do a lot better than just winning one game. And dude, you were pretty prophetic. Your crystal ball was right on, but they do have a shot to go 6-6 and make a bowl game. What else is on your mind?
Since you're going to praise my crystal ball, Yeah, since you're going to praise my crystal ball, I also want to point out another team I was high on. And I said they wouldn't win the West, but they would decide who does and possibly give somebody some issues. The Golden Gophers of Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And, John, we said after that Fresno State game earlier in the year, they won in overtime. It was gritty and gutty and it was ugly. But I said after that win, they had a bye. And I said, watch out, because now this team could get hot and they could be unbeaten going into November. And that sounded ridiculous, but here we are, undefeated Minnesota taking on undefeated Penn State in what is the second biggest game of the weekend. Who would have thought that?
Exactly. And you look at the Big Ten West, Minnesota's got a 2-game lead over Iowa and Wisconsin. Oh, by the way, those two teams play this weekend for the Heartland Trophy. And Minnesota, if they can get that win over Penn State, and we'll talk about that a little later, that really helps their cause. Again, anything else on your mind, Anthony?
No, I'm ready to talk this coming up week, man. I can't wait. We got this big game that we kind of have to. Yeah, there's a big one we kind of got to talk about.
All right, there's several big games, but there's 2 colossal games for next weekend, and I'm sure if you're out there, you're wanting to get tickets to both games. And so, Anthony, if we're wanting to get tickets to Penn State, Minnesota, or LSU, Alabama, where would we go?
Well, you probably should have went to get tickets to LSU, Alabama last week, but you can still go to SeatGiant.com and see, because if you're going to find them, that is where you will find them, John.
And when you check out, if you type in SDH, it helps you and it helps us. That's SeatGiant.com. We're talking games when we come back.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Rock at the What's Up Falcons podcast, and I'm joined with my boys. My boys in the house. Where you at?
Yeah. What up?
Oh, gee, and we have Q, and we have Hoop in the house.
Q's here, the most beloved guy in all of sports entertainment.
Indeed. Hey, y'all, we want to thank everyone for listening to us, and if you want to listen to some great Falcons information, check us out on the What's Up Falcons podcast. Right, fellas?
Right. Sure. Hey, we here every week, baby.
We keeping it real, so check us out out there on Twitter. Holla. Peace.
Subscribe to the What's Up Falcons podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Listen to the What's Up Falcons podcast at whatsupfalcons.com. You're listening to the College Football Debrief on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
All right, we've got 2 colossal games we want to tell you about. First, let's go into the SEC, where, according to LSU's game notes, this is a historic number 1 versus number 1 matchup between LSU and Alabama. LSU, obviously, the number 1 team in the AP poll. Alabama, the number 1 team in the coaches poll. As we're recording this, we don't know what the college football playoff poll is. You probably will if you're listening to this on a later date. If it's released while we're recording this, we'll add that too. But bottom line, Anthony, this is a game that is must-watch TV.
This is a game that's been must-watch TV for, oh my goodness, since at least 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And this is the first time that this game has a different feel to it. I mean, this felt like the exact same script, the exact same game, and wondering if the outcome would be different for so long. But now, John, this is a scoring fest. This is 2 teams that are going to go out there and score a lot of points, and it really makes it exciting. It makes it interesting, because for years the script was they're going to beat each other into the ground, and can LSU finally outslug Alabama? And now they're point fighting. They are point fighting now. This is not a heavyweight fight. This is 2 welterweights that have good footwork and like to work the ropes. So it's a different feel to probably the biggest rivalry in the country in the last decade.
Interesting that this is only the 4th time that LSU and Alabama have met in November undefeated. The last time it happened was 2011. I remember that game being pretty good. 72 and 83 were the other 2. What is the status of Tua, though? I mean, how is that ankle? I mean, even if he is 70% of Tua Tagovailoa better than Mac Jones?
Has there ever been an ankle that's gotten more talk than any ankle in the history of sports? I mean, seriously, Tua's ankle has been trending on Twitter more than the president of the country. It is unbelievable.
Well,
but I mean, that's the number one question and look, we're not going to know the answer to how Tua's ankle is until game time. You know, it's everything you're hearing sounds like, you know, it's positive from Alabama. He's going to play. We know he's going to
play, but it's going to be mobile.
We knew the minute he got hurt that he was going to play in the LSU game. You'd have to cut that ankle off for him not to play. But yeah, the question is, what percentage of Tua are you going to get? Are you going to get 80% Tua? You're going to get 70% Tua? Are you going to get 90% Tua? And what percent of Tua do you need to win? That's the other question. Not is he going to play or not. We've heard all these breakdowns about it's not the plant foot, it's the other foot, it's this and that and the other. And, you know, that sounds all great and good, but there's also the confidence factor in it too, because don't forget, the last time Tua played with a bum ankle, it wasn't the Oklahoma game. It was the Georgia game when he got hurt in that game. And remember how he responded to that. He still played and struggled. And when he got injured again, they pulled him. If he doesn't get injured again, they probably don't beat Georgia last year. So that was one factor to look at it. Here's the other way to look at that, though. Remember last year going into the LSU game, he also had some ankle injuries and some questions, and he responded by scrambling for a touchdown run for over 50 yards. So we've seen it go both ways. I guess you have to ask yourself what the severity of it's going to be. But the question is, what percentage does he need to be for them to win? Because this isn't like last year. Scoring, 24 points isn't going to be enough. You may need to score in the 30s to win this game.
I brought up the 2011 game as the last time that Alabama and LSU met as undefeated teams in November. That was a win by LSU, 9-6. That's why I remember that game so much. It was a field goal fest. And then Alabama's won every meeting since. Psychologically, I think LSU needs to score within their first couple possessions. Remember last year's game? It was crazy at Death Valley, and Alabama marched down the field and scored on their first possession of the game, as I recall, or kept the ball and really silenced that frenzied crowd at Death Valley, and really just took the air out of the building and the LSU football team. And, I think LSU needs to have some positive plays, maybe some chunk plays toward the beginning of the game and get 7 points, because I think psychologically LSU kind of feels they're going to be, if they're pressing in this game, I think it really favors Alabama. Hey, they're going to be in hostile territory in Tuscaloosa, and that place is going to be as frenzied as Death Valley or Baton Rouge was last year.
Yeah, it does benefit that this is a 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 local game and not a night game, but it's still going to be a zoo. We know it's going to be wild. And you just said the $1 million question. Can LSU get over the mental block that's been this Alabama defense? I mean, you mentioned last year, and that was a big story, but ever since that 2011 season, it's been year after year of this, John. Think about a few years ago when Leonard Fournette essentially lost the Heisman in Tuscaloosa. He was a lock to win the Heisman that year and couldn't even get more than 40 yards. And that, coincidentally was also probably the game that won Derrick Henry the Heisman. But that was a big shock factor for LSU fans that we cannot move against this team. I mean, even in that 2011 season, they win 9-6 against Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Then in the rematch, they lose 21-0 in the Superdome, which essentially, and I was at this game, so I can verify, that was pretty much an LSU home game, and they couldn't even get past the 50-yard line. So this whole series, that's what makes this so exciting, is this is the first time that you don't feel like you're going into this game wondering, can LSU score enough points? I think the interesting part is you can flip the script now and go, can the defense make enough stops for both of these teams? because both of these teams now feel like they can score within the 30s. And 10 years ago, you would have never thought that.
I'm curious to see, because Joe Burrow has really impressed me as a quarterback for LSU. His toughness, his moxie out there, and that offense goes by Joe Burrow. This is the biggest game he's going to play in. Last year we saw what he did last year against Alabama when that was hyped, and he couldn't see straight. He had red jerseys all over him, coming at him in waves. Probably going to happen again, but do you think that a year later, now that he's kind of established himself and he's got some weapons around him, do you think we'll see a little bit of a different Joe Burrow out there? The ones we've seen all year, that's tough as nails and it's got some swagger to him and really is the heart of that offense.
Well, it's no question he's a different quarterback than he was when he played Alabama last year. And I do think you have to attribute a lot of that to him, but I also think you equally attribute it to the style of offense that they run. And we've said it every game we've broken down with him this year. He just gets the ball out so quick. That's the thing that he does that makes him so successful. Now, if you go back and you look at that Florida game, the times that they were having success defensively, Florida was stuffing them at the line. They were playing press man, and they were knocking them off their routes and bumping them, messing up those timings across the middle and trying to take those levels away. And when they did that and they were able to get pressure organically, that's when Joe Burrow did have his struggles in that game. The question is going to be, can Alabama duplicate that? Because this is not the Alabama defense that we've become accustomed to. This is the biggest test that these young linebackers are going to have at Alabama all year. And a linebacking core at Alabama with two true freshmen that, honestly, if you were grading them, are probably at a C- or D+ on the season right now. They have not progressed the way fans like to see them do it. So, John, with that said, here's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Are we going to see? How much nickel and dime, specifically dime, are we going to see from Alabama in this game? Because Alabama, if they're looking for strength, they have two good pass rushers in Terrell Lewis and then on the other side, and then they also have a veteran secondary. Now, that veteran secondary has looked lost at times, but they can play physical, and they need to play press. This needs to be the most physical game plan that Pete Golden's played, and I think in order to achieve that, they're going to have to play a lot out of the dime. So this might be a different defense than what you've seen on film from Alabama, but it's going to be the same game plan offensively for LSU because nobody's been able to stop it yet.
All right, so I know who you're for, and you expect to win because you're going to be in your Alabama room and probably a nervous wreck throughout most of this game.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you're going to be
so
as easy last
wrong.
year. What? I'm
You're
so wrong?
so wrong.
I'm wrong?
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to be in my Alabama room. I'm going to be in section U2, row 22, seat L, if you must know.
Okay.
I will be at this game. So, and I think LSU is going to win this game, if I'm being honest. I think what I just mentioned about Alabama's defense, I think that's the difference. I think if you look at these teams right now, if Alabama, they have to play the best game they've played all year to win. And I think LSU can play at the level they played against Auburn and the level they played against Florida and win this game. I don't think Alabama's played a performance yet that can win this game. Now, it doesn't mean they can't, but it's all about the defense. You know, depending on Tua's health, we'll see how that goes. I think Alabama's offense is going to score. Najee Harris has quietly played really well in the last month after everybody said Alabama couldn't run the ball and Alabama's not physical anymore. They're going to be just fine. He can run the football. They're going to be able to run the ball and get the yards when they need to. Those receivers are going to make some plays, and they're going to score. The question is, can they stop LSU from scoring? And right now, I have not seen the evidence to think that they can. Pete Golding cannot be as passive from a game plan standpoint as he's been this year. They have to be aggressive. They have to push them at the line and play press. They have to send blitzes. They have to give exotic looks. They have to do the same thing that Auburn did to Kevin Steele, where they showed, a 6-man blitz and then backed out of it and made him adjust on the fly. Those are the kind of things that they need to do. The difference is they can't get the organic pass rush that Auburn got. And that's the problem Alabama's going to have in this game. I do think it'll be scoring into the 30s, but I think LSU wins this game probably by a margin of 34-28, 34-30, something like that. But I like the Tigers.
So unlike Anthony, I won't be at the game. I'll probably be at my daughter's basketball game with my earbuds on, listening to Eli Gold describe the action. But I like LSU in this game as well. I just think there are teams that are destiny teams, and I just kind of think LSU is that destiny team this year, and they get it done in Tuscaloosa. And Anthony, you will probably be, as an Alabama guy, nursing your wounds at some watering hole after the game. I guarantee it.
Well, let me say this, and this is going to upset a lot of Alabama fans, but I want to be honest about this, okay? When we've looked at this game for the last 8 years, and really any Alabama game in the last 8 years, not just LSU, but any game they've played, John, if you really want to be honest, there was always 3 outcomes. There's either Alabama wins by close, the opponent plays well, Alabama guts it out. Opponent wins a close game, upsets them, usually by a dual threat quarterback, but something happens, they win a close one. Or option 3, Alabama just blows them out. Those have been the 3 options. This is the first Alabama game I can remember going into feeling like there's an option 4. LSU could win this game comfortably. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm not saying I think that they will. But could they? They absolutely could. If Tua's not healthy enough, if the defense is passive and doesn't make enough plays, the offense has problems. This LSU team can score. And if Tua's not healthy and the defense doesn't help them, they could 100% find themselves in a hole. And if they find themselves in a hole like they have against Georgia in the past, can they build it up and make the comeback like they've done in previous years? I don't know. So that's what intrigues me about this game is anything can happen. This game can go many directions, and I think that's what's so exciting.
Well, I do have something I need for you to do while you're in Tuscaloosa at the game. I'd like for you
you need.
I'd like for you to walk down and tap the shoulder of President Trump and get your picture taken with the president.
So I got to tell you something, John. I'm kind of aggravated with Donald Trump right now. Because I don't care what political party you're going, you're for. That has nothing to do with this. He's following me all weekend. He's going to be at the Hawks game that I'm working on Friday night. And then he's going to be at the Alabama game that I'm going to on Saturday. I'm hoping he's not back in Atlanta on Sunday. But traffic was already a nightmare downtown today, just getting ready. And it's still a couple of days away. So thanks, Donald Trump, for making me sit in traffic for the next 6 days.
Doesn't bode well for 2020. Let's move on to the other colossal game, this one in the Big Ten, as undefeated Minnesota and undefeated Penn State battle, and probably the biggest college game in Minneapolis that I can recall. The last time the Gophers hosted a top when they were ranked and hosted another ranked team in Minneapolis was 1961 when Minnesota was number 5 in the country and they defeated number 1 Michigan State, shut them out 13-0. Can you say, and you spent some time in Minnesota, can you say this is probably the biggest game since the Johnny and Tommy game in town?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, Minnesota is not a college town by any means. Minneapolis forgets a lot of times they have a college football team, but there will be excitement. There will be a hardcore minority fans, a group that doesn't get a lot of love in the city, but they're going to be out and be loud for this game because that group, that one section of Minneapolis is going to be all about PJ Fleck and the Gophers. There's a lot of excitement for this team and for this game. And the cool thing about Minnesota fans is they're just excited to be in the conversation. Like when I've talked to them, and I've talked to a few of my old buddies this week and asked them about the game and they're going to it. They're like, yeah, we're probably going to lose, But how cool is this? How cool is this that we are one of the spotlight games in the country along with Alabama and LSU? And that says a lot about the job that PJ Fleck has done.
That's right. And, of course, Minnesota leading the Western Division of the Big Ten. Penn State tied with Ohio State in the Eastern Division. So have you been impressed with Minnesota this year as you watched them throughout the year?
I have. They've really progressed into this team. You know, when they started off, we mentioned earlier, they started off this year. This was not a pretty undefeated team. They had a lot of scrapers that they had to get by. And even going back to that San Diego State game to open the year on a Thursday night, or South Dakota State, they barely made it through that game. They won by a touchdown. Then they go and they win in overtime, 2 overtimes at Fresno. Then they win by a field goal against Georgia Southern. Then they win by a touchdown at Purdue. So September was a lot of fly by the seat of your pants for Minnesota. But what happened was Tanner Morgan in this running game really got comfortable in the style of offense that they were going to play. And they took off in the month of October. I mean, there was a lot. Once conference play started, this offense really had confidence in what they were trying to get accomplished. And defensively, they've played really well, too. They're a team, John, that when you watch them play, their defense doesn't have any stars, but they play extremely solid. And they play really solid in the back. And they're a defense that plays from the back forward. They get their secondary set, and they figure out what coverage they're in, and then the linebackers transition from there, and they figure out, okay, we send in pressure, we go in organic, and then the defensive line goes from there. They do a lot of shifts pre-snap as well. So they're a defense that plays really well as a unit and quietly has had a really strong year, highlighted by a really strong October. So this team, if you go back and you just look at scores, yeah, okay, they're not really that impressive of an undefeated team, and they probably should have lost a game or two, but they've played a lot better in the last month, and Penn State is getting the best version of Minnesota that they could get.
Yeah, you mentioned their quarterback, Tanner Morgan. That leads me to this quarterback matchup between Morgan and Sean Clifford. Clifford leading the conference in total offense, second in passing, and a really good quarterback matchup. And really, Sean Clifford is that offense for Penn State. And Minnesota kind of middle of the road in the Big Ten against the run. Same thing against the pass. But I got to think that Penn State can't rely totally on Sean Clifford in this game to be successful.
I don't think they can either, because you said, as you mentioned, their numbers may be mediocre, but they play a lot better than their numbers say. They also force a lot of turnovers. And Sean Clifford has been very protective of the ball. He's got 20 TDs and 3 picks. But Minnesota's going to try to force a couple of interceptions. And if Penn State gets away from the running game, that's where I think this game could get extremely interesting, because as big of a fan as I am of James Franklin, the one critique I have of this season has been if Noah Cain does not start breaking runs early in the first half, they kind of forget about him, and they kind of abandon the run game and do get a little pass heavy, and that will play right into Minnesota's hands. So Noah Cain, the freshman out of Baton Rouge, needs to have a big game for Penn State, and really that whole running back committee just keeping them balanced in this game, because Minnesota wants to make them one-dimensional.
Minnesota leads the Big Ten in interceptions as a team. So, yeah, there are a bunch of ball hawks out there for the Gophers. How do you see this game progressing?
Well, this is going to be a extremely packed, loud, crazy house for Minnesota. As crazy as you can be at 11 o'clock local time. But they're going to be excited, and I think this will be one of the best atmospheres there's ever been at a Golden Gopher game. I do like the matchup of the Minnesota secondary. I want to see, I think they will get a pick, maybe 2. I say definitely 1, but I'm interested to see the looks that they give Sean Clifford and can they bait him. But Penn State's just too strong of a team. I mean, this team, when they want to, they can look elite. And I think finding that consistency for this year's particular team has been a little bit of a chore for James Franklin and his staff. But when the big games are there and they need to step up, they've stepped up and over-delivered, and I think they will in this game as well. I like Penn State to win. I think Minnesota can hang around for a little bit, but I think a 17-point gap is what we're probably going to see in this game. Maybe like a 31-14, somewhere like that. I just think this Penn State team has been disrespected in the sense that nobody talks about them. Nobody thinks that they have a chance in that big game against a team that we shall not mention in 2 weeks. No one's going to give them a chance, and I think that that's going to fuel them leading up.
The forecast for Minneapolis on Saturday in early November, it's going to be raining, and the high is going to be 37 degrees. You would think for a big game in Minnesota, it might be in the teens, but you're actually going to see some frosty breath out there, which is appropriate for a big game in Minneapolis. There's a tendency for me with all the momentum and that the Gophers have generated and the good things that PJ Fleck has done there, that this is kind of the signature moment for Minnesota in the PJ Fleck era. And you kind of feel that could happen. It's going to be a frenzied atmosphere. It's, they've probably bumped the Vikings off the lead of the sports pages for the first time in eons. But I think you're right. I just think Penn State's a stronger team. They've been there and done that. And, if Minnesota gets some breaks here and there, then maybe they got a good shot. But I've got to go with the Nittany Lions in this game. I agree. I just think that the Penn State's just a much stronger team, and they get the job done. And, of course, Minnesota is going to be looking at that Iowa-Wisconsin game, because should they lose, and whoever wins that Iowa-Wisconsin game will just be a game back in the Western Division as the race to the Big Ten title game would intensify in that division. Anthony, are you ready for lightning round?
I am, and we have a packed lightning round. You mentioned it was a big week. There's 2 massive games, and then there's like a million really, really intriguing games. So let's try to do all 1 million, John. You ready?
I'm born ready.
Okay, let's start off on a Friday night. Washington travels to take on that pesky Oregon State team you mentioned in Corvallis, trying to get 2 more wins to get to a bowl. Do they get one closer on Friday night?
I like the Huskies in this game. I'll be interested to see if there's any kind of crazy atmosphere in Corvallis for this one, because Oregon State has played a lot better than we expected.
No, I totally agree. Oregon State's played well, but Washington's going to win this game. Hopefully it's a competitive game, but Huskies win it. Let's go to Saturday. Big battle in Texas as Baylor, unbeaten, heads to TCU, coming off a tough loss last week with 3 turnovers against Oklahoma State. But 2 weeks ago, they beat Texas. Can they beat another in-state team and upset their season?
No. Baylor has got too much going for them right now. And I am extremely impressed with what Matt Rule has done. And he's got a complete team now. He's got his guys there, and they're playing outstanding. Baylor wins this one. Kind of has an old Southwest Conference feel to it, doesn't it?
It really does. And you know what I really like about this Baylor team is when you think Baylor, you always want to talk about the offense. And yeah, Charlie Brewer and that offense is impressive, but they really struggled last week against West Virginia. Defense and special teams really shine for Baylor. They're a balanced team, and they have the best special teams in the Big 12 to me. And because of their balance, I like Baylor to win this game. It'll be interesting. TCU could hang with them, but I like them to win this game. Let's go on to another team that we talked about earlier.
First of all, before we do that, Alex Delton has left the TCU program, so that program is dangerously thin at quarterback. Who's going to be under center for the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, well, they played, and I can't think of the kid's name now. He played really well
Matthew
against
Downey.
Texas, got a little bit of confidence, yes. And then last week he threw 3 picks, so there you go. Let's move on to another team we talked about earlier, Florida State with the interim HC heading up to Chestnut Hill. Do they keep getting wins under an interim coach, John?
Did you watch Boston College against a lifeless Syracuse team last week, and what A.J. Dillon did against that defense, that lack of defense?
For some reason, yes, I did watch some of that.
Yeah, I tortured myself with a little of that too. I think it's a different ball game. I think Florida State's going to play hard for Odell Higgins. The defense, to me, hasn't been an issue this year for Florida State, and they've actually played really well against the run. If the offensive line, BC's defense is not all that good either. And if that offensive line actually can block some people, there's enough offensive talent, especially with Cam Akers in that backfield, to get it done. I like Florida State.
I always like teams with an interim head coach because of emotion and excitement. The problem is, I think these two teams are pretty close, and in a close game, I think that interim head coaches have a hard time making decisions because they're so new on the job. Even though Odell Hagen's been with this team, I like Boston College to win this game in a close one, probably a touchdown, 34-27-ish, somewhere in there. Let's move on. Another fun Big 12 game. Doesn't really matter, but it'll be fun to watch. Texas Tech at West Virginia in Morgantown. Both of these teams with first-year head coaches who've done pretty good jobs, I guess. I definitely would say West Virginia more than Texas Tech. They've kind of been a roller coaster. But both these teams need a win to get closer to a bowl game. Who gets it?
Well, I think the question is, who's the first to 50? Or maybe who's the first to 60? And that it's a pick 'em to me. I'm going to go with Texas Tech though, but I think both teams reach 45 points.
I think Matt Wells has done a good job, but I do think that some of the questions around him are warranted. Some of their losses, there have been questionable coaching decisions. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with Neil Brown in West Virginia. I think this will be close,
smart pick.
But they've botched some really close games from time mismanagement, from play callings, things like that. So they have to clean that up before I can trust them. Speaking of a team that we don't trust, Western Kentucky in Fayetteville taking on Arkansas. Is this the swan song for Chad Morris?
Oh, man. I think if John Stephen Jones is going to have a big game, this is his time to shine. And I think those offensive players for Arkansas will play hard for him. I think he's the leader that's been lacking at that position for Arkansas all year. So I'm going to go with Arkansas. I think they're winning by 10. Ty Story is going to be fired up coming back to Fayetteville, and will probably put up some numbers too. But I got to go with the Razorbacks in this one. They'll win by 10. If they win by anything less, then Chad Morris's seat probably remains pretty nuclear. But if they lose, we may see a change on the next Sunday.
I like John Stephen Jones getting this start, and I'm going to go with Arkansas too, only because Western Kentucky's not very good. So, if they were playing a little bit better of a team like that, I would say, yeah, look out. But as bad as Arkansas's been, I don't think Western Kentucky's got the juice to get them beat. I'm going to go with you. All right, moving on. This is a very intriguing game. Louisville taking on Miami. Now, Louisville is a team that has really shocked everybody. Everybody's darling. They travel to Coral Gables to take on, well, not really Coral Gables, but they call it Coral Gables. It's that weird city that's off the interstate on a turnpike in Miami.
Miami Lakes.
Whatever that stadium's called now. Yes, thank you very much. Taking on the Hurricanes, going off the big win over the Noles. Who you like in this game?
I like Louisville in this game. They've got some injury issues right now, but I just think Scott Satterfield is that good a coach. He coaches up his players. Miami, they had the big win over Florida State. Yeah, you tend to think that maybe they've kind of straightened things out, but that Louisville team plays hard, and there's guys playing out of position that are being effective. So I'm a believer in Scott Satterfield, and I'm a believer in the Cardinals, and they get it done and get bowl eligible.
Wow. If they get bowl eligible, is he ACC Coach of the Year?
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, he's wrapped it up right there.
I don't think it's even
I have a vote,
debate.
and I'll vote
I don't think it's a debate. He's ACC Coach of the Year if they make a bowl. And they will make a bowl. They will not do it in this game, though. I think Miami's defensive front has finally found their foot, and they ate FSU up last week in the trenches. I think they beat up Louisville again. I think that they win this game. Moving on, USC, another embattled head coach, travels down to Tempe to take on Arizona State and Herm Edwards magic, baby. Does the magic continue, or does Clay Helton somehow find a win to keep that inevitable firing 1 week away?
The Fighting Herman Edwards is get this done. I go Sun Devils.
I'm going to say USC just because this feels like a game that USC would win. No reason really, but Clay Helton just always seems to survive. So I'm going to go USC. Iowa at Wisconsin in a game that is going to be really boring. Let's just be honest. This is not going to be a very appealing game at all. It's like two 400-pound dudes shoved into a phone booth that can just elbow each other in the chin. That's what this game's going to be. So which one walks out of the phone booth still standing, John?
Man, that's a thought in my head I'll never get out. Yeah, you're right. This has the feel of a 10-6 type of game, and I'm sure it's going to be cold and raw in Madison for this one. It's for the Heartland Trophy, which is basically a big hog. I'm going to go with the Badgers in this game, and I'm going to go with the Badgers, and they stay alive as far as the Western Division and having a shot at the title game.
Wisconsin's more balanced on offense. I'm going to go Wisconsin as well. Appalachian State got upset last week against Georgia Southern, which kind of takes the luster off this game a little bit, but still intriguing. They head down to Columbia to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks in a game that Will Muschamp must win to get his team to a bowl. Does South Carolina win, or do they get upset here?
I so badly want to pick App State because they're going to be angry. And but I got to go with the Gamecocks on this one. But there's going to be a lot of nervous moments for Gamecock fans in this one. But I think they win probably by a field goal.
Yes, South Carolina, I'm taking in this game. Their front seven's actually really good. They don't give enough credit, but with them combined with Ryan Helinski, who I really like at quarterback, I think they win this game, but it should be interesting. Staying in the SEC East, Missouri heads to between the hedges to give Georgia their last test. Georgia wins this game. They're going to Atlanta. I'm going to go ahead and give my pick. Missouri, I don't think knows how to play on the road. I don't know if they get lost, they switch uniforms, what happens, but flat out, they suck on the road, and they're going to get killed in this game. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to quote my buddy Bill Shanks, who told me today Georgia's going to beat the crap out of Missouri. So I'm going to go with that. And you seem to think the same thing, too.
Yes, I think this has more with Missouri sucking on the road than Georgia, but yes, I agree. Blowout by Georgia. Okay, moving on. I'm going to throw them in there just because we haven't talked about them in a while. Remember that team with the tiger paw on their helmet, Clemson? They still play football. They're playing NC State this weekend. I don't think we're going to care. They're going to blow this game out, right?
Yeah, and this is the Textile Bowl between Clemson and NC State. A primetime offering on ABC. It's just because Clemson's there, and the game was going to be over midway through the first quarter. NC State has just looked terrible this year. Let's call a horse a horse. All that graduation losses, and they just can't figure things out, especially at quarterback. So call your score in this one. Does Travis Etienne put 200 yards back-to-back weeks?
By the way, please stop saying Trevor Lawrence plays bad. It pisses Dabo Swinney off. And also the Textile Bowl, our buddy James Bates' favorite rivalry in the ACC is the old Textile Bowl. So he will be excited about this game. Let's go to a game that I'm really excited about. And we can be sometimes not politically correct on this podcast, right? Like if I want to blur lines, I can be, okay. This, I'm going to call it what it is, John. The battle for what should be the beer barrel. Tennessee at Kentucky. Who you like?
Oh, man. Two fan bases that kind of are drunk on their teams right now. We know that what Tennessee's gone through. Kentucky, they can't keep a quarterback healthy. Wow. I'm just going to go with Kentucky because they are at home And I just think, I'm going to go with Kentucky. I got no reason why. I like the Wildcats in this one, other than they're at home. But this is almost a game, Anthony, I kind of want to watch. Kind of like I just want to watch, two teams that, trying to get bowl eligible and that had some issues with some really bad losses at home, and a fan base that's kind of jaded right now, and another one that just can't keep people healthy, but the fan base is, kind of sticking to them. So I'm going to go with Kentucky.
This is like a bowl of strawberries after you've had a massive 3-course meal, John. After the Alabama LSU game, what better to sit back and watch late on Saturday night than Tennessee at Kentucky? Come on. I like the Vols in this game, man. They've won 3 of their last 4 defensively. They're playing with a lot of confidence. Kentucky's still playing wide receivers at quarterback, and no one gets beat by that except Missouri on the road and Arkansas. So I like Tennessee to win this game. I think they get it done. Sorry.
You're going to put Tennessee on that list.
Truth bombs. Iowa State at Oklahoma. The last time we saw the Sooners, it was not a good look. They're going to be angry in this game, weren't they, John?
Yeah, they've had, 2 weeks to prepare for this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pin your ears back and give it to Iowa State. Although, what happened the last time Iowa State was in Norman?
Yeah, I know, but I think this is different business.
That's 2 years. Yeah, I totally get it.
Oklahoma's pretty angry. I think they're going to smack Iowa State around in this game, unfortunately.
And Iowa State
another
is
Big 12
coming
game.
off a loss to Oklahoma State, so at home. So I got to go with the Sooners in this one. They'll probably win this one by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, at least. Looking at the team that beat Oklahoma, Kansas State, playing really good football right now. Goes to Austin to take on Texas, who I think we can officially say are not back.
No, they're not back. We had a great conversation with Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the K-State Wildcats, on the rivalry show, again, talking about KU. And we had a great conversation about Skylar Thompson and just what a winner he is. And what the dimension he brings to that offense, and just how freer and looser he's playing with Chris Kleiman. And, Chris Kleiman has put his stamp on that program. It took a few games, but Kleiman has put his stamp on this program, and the kids are responding for it. And because of that, and just because what Texas is going through right now, I'm going to go with the Wildcats in this one in an upset.
Yeah, Chris Kleiman's done a fantastic job. And Texas, their defense is just such a liability right now. I like Texas because I think they can still score, and I'm going to pick them in this game. It would not surprise me to see Kansas State win, but they still know how to score in Austin, and I think that will probably be the difference. But this game could absolutely go either way. That's not a give-me at all for Texas. I'm going to throw a regional rivalry out that a small fan base cares about passionately. Wyoming and Boise State, John. Who you like in that game?
That is a good one. I like Boise State in this game. They've played really well this year. And, Wyoming, they're always tough. They play the personality of Craig Bowl. And but I think Boise State has too much talent.
Yeah, I agree. I think Boise State wins this game. I think Boise State is still quietly just flying under the radar, doing their thing. Craig Bohl's a good coach, but they can't get it done in this game. I'm going to stick with your guns on that one. Even though I will say Boise State 7-1, Wyoming 6-2, so it's not like they've had a bad year.
No, it's just
I like the Broncos.
Talent with the Broncos. And interesting, the last 2 games we've picked 2 former North Dakota State coaches.
Yeah. How about that? I didn't even think about that. Good call by you. And finally, John, my game. It's our time, our hipster pick of the week for college football games. The game that you got to search for on your TV dial and can't find. This game will be on television, nationally televised, but it'll be on the NFL Network, John. We're going to Conference USA, where the UAB Blazers travel to Hattiesburg and take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Two teams that are still trying to fight, stay alive, get that division title in Conference USA. Both teams right now are fighting towards the top. I had the standings in front of me. I'm trying to pull them back up so I can officially give you the standings. But this is a rivalry. This is a game with two schools that for years, UAB did not play Troy. So Southern Miss and UAB, they were rivals. And I believe they used to play for a trophy. I'm sure somebody lost it or threw it away. But there's a time when they play for a trophy. But right now, both teams are 3-1 in conference. They're one game back behind Louisiana Tech, who's unbeaten in conference. The Bulldogs are probably going to walk, let's be honest. I mean, they'll probably win this division. They still have UAB left on their schedule. But this is a fun game. Who you like in this one?
Of course, UAB coming off that performance against Tennessee, where they kind of felt like they kind of let one go. They should play for a trophy. And of all hipster games, this has your stamp written all over it. UAB and Southern Miss. Hey, it's a game I'd love to go to and watch. Oh man, both teams are play so evenly. I'm going to go with Southern Miss. I really like the way Jack Abraham has played at quarterback, leading the conference in total offense. He's a really exciting player to watch. So I'm going to have to go with the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss.
This will be an intriguing quarterback battle with Jack Abraham taking on Tyler Johnston, the pride of Spanish Fort, Alabama. The difference in this game, though, John, both these quarterbacks may throw pretty well. They also both throw a lot of picks, let's be honest. And this is going to be a game where I think the defensive backs are going to feed in this game. I like Southern Miss to win this one in a close game. I think this is a 4-point or less game, probably 28-24, somewhere in there. But a lot of craziness. Maybe not the most cleanly played game, but still kind of an exciting game to keep an eye on. And that is our lightning round of the week.
How could you keep Wake Forest and Virginia Tech off the lightning round? Wake Forest is... Oh,
my goodness.
I mean, Virginia Tech right now, they don't know who their quarterback is. Hendon Hooker has played really well, but he's had injury issues. So right now, trying to find out, where's my depth chart? Oh, I had a depth chart here. I'm like you, trying to find out the standings of the. All right, well, so be it. I forget, Quincy Patterson. That's who played against Notre Dame.
Live podcast, folks. This is live.
Yes. That's who played against Notre Dame, and he had his struggles against Notre Dame, and Virginia Tech has struggled offensively, but they're at home. Wake can't be looking past Wake or Virginia Tech as they get ready for their showdown with Clemson next weekend in Death Valley. And Jamie Newman, to me, if he continues this pace, is the ACC Player of the Year. And nobody knows about this kid. They all know about Trevor Lawrence, but Jamie Newman has quietly become a really good quarterback, a star in the league. So this is we're going to see what Wake Forest is made out of, because Bud Foster's defense at Virginia Tech has been kind of suspect, but I thought they tightened up a lot better against Notre Dame up until the end, where they kind of folded. But I kind of like Wake in this game. But if they're looking past this one and penciling that Clemson game, which I don't think they will, that might not bode well for them. But it really depends on who plays quarterback for Virginia Tech. And what's really puzzled me about the Hokies this year, Anthony, is when you've got a guy who, and Justin Fuente is a head coach whose reputation is of developing quarterbacks into NFL talent. He hasn't been able to do that at Virginia Tech. And when he's had guys in there, they don't usually only last 1 year.
No, you're absolutely right. And first of all, please forgive me for leaving this game off the lightning round because I did gloss over it. But yeah, this is a big game. This is a really good game. And Virginia Tech played really well against Notre Dame. I think their gas tank may be a little empty, though, particularly on defense. They really got beat in that game on a lot of quick routes and given soft coverage and not being able to wrap guys up. That could bode not well for them playing Sage Surratt. Sage Surratt could have a really big game in this. And as much love as we give Newman, the quarterback, what about our guy, John, who's been there for like 18 years? Cade Carney.
Love Cade
still
Carney.
At Wake Forest, in case you forgot. Yes, still there, still playing. I swear he played for Jim Grobe. But Cade Carney will give them enough balance on offense, I think. I think he could have a big game in this, to be honest, because Virginia Tech, when they've gotten spread out, they have a really hard time stopping the runs up the middle, and I think that could bode well for Wake Forest. I like the Demon Deacons.
I do too, and Cade Carney's going to be running over people. That's what he does. He loves contact, and he gets yards after contact. So, yeah, go with the Deeks. Okay, so we hope you enjoyed our podcast this week. Next week, we'll go over LSU, Alabama. Let's hope it's a classic. Same with Minnesota and Penn State, and we'll take a look at the big games coming up in college football. So, for Anthony Goldman, I'm John Wilkerson. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the games this weekend.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Debrief. You can find this and past shows by downloading the OSG Sports app on your mobile device. Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.